So we have an opportunity here to just express our gratitude for all that you as supporters of our department over at Clemson have done for us. We've had some huge successes over the last couple of years. We're now a STEM approved program, so those of you that have kids that are in high school and you're hoping they'll come to Clemson, they will now get the extra revenue from the Palmetto Scholarship because we are a STEM program. This is good news for us and for the students going forward. For those of you that are already in the program, I apologize. That's not retroactive, but again, that came about as a result of the hard work and effort that you as an industry have done on our behalf up to this point. We have a fantastic experiential learning construction yard at Clemson now. Our goal, as Honorbond pointed out, facilities development going forward and the desire by employees to work part-time, or not part-time, but to work remotely. I guess that was a Freudian slip maybe, because when you're at home, we're assuming you're working. So, but that remote working condition is going to extend to the universities as well. So what we're doing in the interim, where we need expansion room for the growth of our program, is we're actually developing that experiential learning yard at Clemson with modular buildings that are basically modular classrooms that are in the likeness of a construction trailer on a job site. So for our students, for our program, that's perfect, because that is the environment that they're going to go to work in when they graduate. So we're looking at expanding that over the next couple of years. We hope to have at least 6 new modular classrooms out at Ravenel out on the Clemson campus for our students and faculty to offer our education from. The investment in that development relative to the investment in a brand new architecturally impressive building for our department is pennies on the dollar. And that's why we're going in this direction, recognizing that at some point in the future, as Clemson University embraces online and at distance education, space will become available on the Clemson campus for our program to have its own glass front, storefront type of facility. Right now, we're looking into the future at possibly, those of you that are familiar with the Clemson campus, possibly Serene Hall or a historic building like that on campus being renovated for our occupation in the future. So lots of excitement on campus, lots of excitement about our program, and that excitement is because of you. You're communicating with Jim Clements over cognac and cigars, and those communications are infinitely beneficial to us. When our upper administration knows what our needs are and what our desires are, we are benefited by that, because it resonates in the consciousness of those that you're talking to. So when you're in the box, the president's box at a football game this season, drop CSM in your thoughts, in your conversation, and drop the idea that we're doing everything we can to grow, to provide more graduates for the industry. Right now we have approximately 300 students in the CSM program. When I came to Clemson 5 years ago, we had about 150, and we hope to have 500 by the time I am going to step back from being the chair of the department. So by 2027, we expect to have 500 students in the program and graduate 150 plus a year. So that's our goal. It's a growth model that actually is going to happen by taking advantage of technology, our faculty ability to work remotely, and the ability for our students to work in the industry and complete their degree by taking courses remotely as well. When I say that, I want to make sure everybody understands that Clemson University will always have a live presence on the main campus at Clemson. So we are not talking about eroding or tearing down the excellent live education that has always been provided, since the mid-'60s has been provided at Clemson. We hope to always attract that core group of students to construction, science, and management at Clemson University. We just want to expand on that with a non-traditional student body that will allow us to provide more workers for the demand out there in the industry. So that being said, our next presentation is a revelation or a reveal of one of those things that you as an industry have done to really benefit us. And what I want to do is have one of our strong supporters from the past. This young man bleeds orange and has been just a huge supporter of our department over the years, and is a Clemson guy. So Jim Britton, please come up and introduce our next speaker.
Good morning. I wouldn't say young man. I appreciate the compliment, though. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Senator Michael Johnson. One thing about Michael is he's a very strong Tiger fan. The problem is he's an Auburn Tiger. That's his downside. His upside is he's a politician that understands construction. I first met Michael in 2005 when he was a school board member in one of the fastest growing districts in the nation. There we worked on multiple building programs that totaled over $300 million that assisted the district. Since then, he was elected to county council, where we worked together on the first building program in over a generation that totaled over $150 million in much-needed municipal projects. Most recently, Michael was elected to state senate, and he worked with our industry advisory board in developing a new revenue source to assist construction education in South Carolina. And I say all that to say this: Michael's not only a rising star in state politics, but he's a friend to our construction community. So please welcome Senator Michael Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me. When they said you're going to talk for 40 minutes about a bill that is maybe 16 sentences, I thought, well, this is not going to go very well, quite honestly. I could read it to you, and if I said a word a minute, we wouldn't take 40 minutes to get through this. But Jim reminded me that in my real job, I am an attorney, and I am a politician, so I can at least give you 20 to 30 good minutes before you go on break just for those reasons alone. So I want to talk to you about Act 388. We passed this bill, 888. We passed this past year. It has been signed into law. So the reality was this: last year, about this time, probably over a couple of drinks, Jim Britton said to me, I have an idea. Other states are doing this. Why don't you allow contractors to simply donate money on a voluntary basis when they renew their contractor's license? And by doing that, that money will go directly to the institutions and the programs that are using that money. So when you look at it, what it says to you is, an applicant for a new renewal contractor's license must be given an opportunity to make a voluntary contribution to be distributed to an accredited public institution of higher learning offering degrees in construction science, building science, or civil engineering. So you kind of go, well, that sounds nice, but is it actually going to raise any money? In the state of Alabama, $800,000 a year is raised for the construction management program. Over $600,000 of that goes to my alma mater, Auburn University, directly for their construction science program. In Florida, it raises over $1 million, with most of that money going to the University of Florida. Because if you don't designate who you want it to, and each of you could designate, you could say, I want that money to go to Clemson University, or you could say, I want it to go to the Citadel or the University of South Carolina or South Carolina State, because those are the 4 institutions in South Carolina that will benefit from this. If you don't designate who it's going to go to, it's simply going to turn around and be distributed to the universities and institutions based on the amount of students in those programs. So when you think about it, Clemson is going to be the primary benefactor of this bill. So I'm going to want to take a moment and just kind of, most of you, I can look in this room, most of you remember sitting at home on Sunday mornings and the little cartoon with the little Bill, and he's saying, I'm just a Bill, I'm just a Bill. Well, I want to remind you how things actually become laws, because people forget. In South Carolina, I sat around, Jim, Mike, and we came up with, hey, here is what we want. Bill's drafted. I file it in December of 2021. It chugs along. We get a committee hearing, gets through a subcommittee. We get through a full committee. By the way, it took 2 full committees to get this through because certain people, I don't want to say they didn't like Clemson, but they just didn't like the idea of having voluntary contributions. So we had to argue against that and show, hey, this is not a tax. This is simply voluntary contributions. Let us pass this. We get it out of the Senate, and I'm trying to look for the date. We finally get it out of the Senate on March 22nd. It goes over to the House. In the House, it fairly much languished, moved nowhere until May. And by the way, we get out May the 13th, I believe it was this year. This bill passed out of the House on May the 12th, the day before session ended. The governor signed it into law 4 days later, and this became a law, 40-11-40. And it kicked in this week because it had a 60-day delay from July 15th. And so it actually became effective this past Tuesday. So every person in this room who has a contractor's license, who can renew that license, starting 2 days ago, you can now designate extra funds to go to Clemson University or any university that has these degree programs. By doing that, you are going to expand the possibilities for students and faculty at Clemson University. I specifically looked at what were some of the goals of Clemson over the next few years. And over the next 3 to 5 years, the Construction Science and Management Department has these stated goals. We want to graduate 125 to 150 more diverse, highly qualified graduates. They want to build 15 to 20,000 square feet of additional facilities, and they want to add 1 new faculty member a year. Well, it just so happens when you read this bill, it tells you that the money can be used for scholarships, fellowships, research, faculty development, and continuing education programs. This money is going to have a direct impact on what you all do. This is going to have a direct impact on the next generation of students who do what you do. This is the type of thing that I support. This simply said, wasn't the government coming in and said, you shall give X amount of dollars to these programs. It said you can voluntarily give it, and it's tax deductible. So the question is, out of the 10,000 roughly contractors in South Carolina, what are we going to raise? Are we going to give $25,000 a contractor on average and raise $250,000? Are we going to give 50, 75, 100? How many large firms are going to tell everyone when they renew their license, add an extra $75, add an extra $100? This is different than giving to your football program. This is different than giving to name, image, likeness. This is different than just donating to the amorphous university scholarship fund, and I get those calls all the time. So I get it. Folks, this is a chance to change the program. And to, if you want to graduate 500 CSM students, well, here it is. There will be scholarships. There will be more faculty. There will be the chance to take your competition teams and have them go out into the country and compete. This is what is, quite honestly, this is what I think is good about government. I am not a huge fan of government. I think government gets in the way and pretty much stymies most good things 90% of the time. But here, instead of closing a door, we opened a door, and we're allowing Clemson and the other schools in our state to go out and attract some of the best and the brightest students into this type of degree program. And it's going to affect construction science, building science, and civil engineering. It was funny when we were debating this, there was some great debate over adding the civil engineering part, but Florida and both Alabama both have it, and so we added in, and we have the opportunity to grow the amount of engineers. I'm excited about this process, and I hope that you all, and one of the reasons I came here today, not just to tell you, yes, this exists, yes, this is what we did, but to say to you, engage. When you renew your license, do this. This is if you want 500 more graduates, if you say we're going to need more qualified people in these fields over the next decade, here it is. Here is an opportunity. If once upon a time you could endow scholarships for about $100,000, well, here we are. We're 4 or 5 scholarships a year in CSM. We're endowing faculty positions every year. This has an opportunity to change this program forever, and I want to encourage you all to certainly join us. Well, I told you I was short. So, I've literally told you everything there is about this bill. There's nothing I could add onto it other than I am happy to answer just general questions. I did listen to our economist. I'm a real estate attorney. I couldn't be any more depressed after hearing that. I practice in York and Lancaster counties primarily. I can tell you that Lancaster County is the 13th fastest growing county in America. York County is the 54th fastest growing county in America. There are buildings going up left and right. Everything is going up. But I have seen, and all the realtors will tell you in my area, residential real estate has basically come to almost a halt. We went from a 2 to 3 week inventory on June 1st to an over 4-month inventory as of last week on houses. Most of the major builders I've talked to have all told me that they are slowing down and they will not be building homes unless they have them under contract. On a commercial side, I do some commercial development myself, and I can tell you we're plugging ahead and moving forward. We still have people who want Class A office space, who want retail space. I think there's going to be some room for that. The economists in South Carolina are calling for a slowdown in 2023, but we're not calling for an end to the world as we know it. We're certainly not calling for an 08 or 09 type event. In fact, tax revenues, this past year, we cut taxes $2 billion in South Carolina. Even after doing that, we're still going to run about a $2.5 billion surplus, and they're calling for an additional $1.5 billion surplus next year. So there is money. The state is still moving along, chugging along. Things are still happening. I always listen to economists and hope. I hope they're painting the worst case scenario, not the best case scenario, and I'm hoping that was said today. I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have about state government, anything that interests you. Yes, sir.
What's going to happen with the Carolina Panthers practice facility?
I saw that.
It's kind of in your area over there, right?
The who? Yeah. The Panthers? So, funny story. I used to serve on the county council when the Panthers said they wanted to move to Rock Hill. I am one of 3 of the 7 county council members who voted against it. Because I believed in 2019 and in 2020, they were never coming, and that the governments involved were not going to be able to live up to all of the obligations that they were saying they could. Fast forward, it's now 2022, and I always like to remind certain people, I told you so. But they've got about $185 million in the ground. The building is halfway built, and the states have put, between the state and the federal government, we put $85 million into an interchange right there. That is an interchange that leads nowhere. So what are we going to do with that land? I can't tell you exactly what we're going to do with it, and I kind of have an idea. They've begun to tell us what's about to happen. It is going to be developed. You're still going to see something happen. It will not be the Panthers. He's going to get rid of that. He's going to unload all of that. If he can get out from underneath his bankruptcy proceedings, he will sell that property. There are a few, not a ton, but there are a few very interested buyers who would bring sport entertainment type events into that facility. Originally, that was going to be a $1.5 billion investment. I expect it now to probably be closer to $800 to $900 million ultimately. But I think you are going to see something. The real question is, what is, Tepper is one of the top 50th richest men on the planet. What is his end goal? He has stopped his soccer facility in Charlotte. He has stopped his football practice facility. So the real question is will there be a Carolina Panthers in 5 to 10 years? I'd be more interested in that than what's going to go into that facility in Rock Hill, because I think he has pulled back on almost every major expansion effort that he had in Charlotte. So, any non-Panther related questions? Yes, sir.
With the recent passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, I know the federal government has highly incentivized states to adopt the new energy code. I know the NAHB has said that that could add $5,000 to $10,000 of cost per new residential home. I know this is new, so there may not be a sense out there yet of what the state's going to do, but with the current in-statute energy code that we have, this would have to go through the legislator to get this all changed. Is there a sense on what the state's leaning towards right now?
I don't think there's any sense as of right now. I think for the most part, we're still just trying to figure out what the new law will mean for South Carolina. Going into slower economic times, I'm going to be very surprised if South Carolina and our legislature makes any move that is going to make it harder to build and harder to grow, bottom line. And in fact, I would like to see us go in the opposite direction and make it easier. Quite honestly, I think there's way too many regulations. I think there's way too much government interference. And I would not be supportive, and I have serious doubts that the legislature, and especially the Senate, would be supportive of anything like that. Anything else? Y'all are like, oh, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So if they just write Clemson University, does it go to both the construction science and management and the civil engineering, or do they specifically need to state which one?
I think if you wrote Clemson CSM, it's going to go to Clemson CSM. But the agreement is that it will go to the university, and then the university has to give it to that specific department, give it to the departments. And that was going to be more of a university decision in how they broke that out interiorly. Originally, this is like draft 6, 7 of that before it was done. The original draft had a little more, it was going directly to the department, but the realization was that was not going to work. We needed it to flow through the university and let them disperse it out, especially at all the universities. So that's what it'll do. But I think if you put Clemson CSM, I would hope that it would get there. And certainly it will be something that we monitor over the next few years. If we are watching this money and it's not getting to these types of programs, that's a 2 or 3 word tweak. That's something we can do. Any other questions? All right. How many of you are going to renew your license between now and the end of the year? Raise your hand. All right. Well, we got a couple of $100 already raised. So, y'all, I thank you all. Thank you all for what you do for our state. Thank you for all the things you do to help our economy grow. If I can ever help you, please reach out. I will say a lot of people don't believe that contacting their senator or their state rep matters or changes anything. I can tell you this bill would not exist. I was not sitting around thinking, man, how can I write a bill about construction science? It hadn't crossed my mind. Jim Britton literally takes me out for drinks, and the next thing you know, we have a law that could literally put more money and scholarships into this program. I'm excited about it. Please continue to reach out. Thank you all for having me. Enjoy your break.
Well, from Michael Jackson to Michael Johnson, we've got a couple of immigrants here that only, several hundred years back. The comments earlier about immigration and its effect on construction, I would like to just remind us all that everybody in this room is an immigrant. None of our ancestors were original peoples here. So immigration is a great thing for construction, whether we're first generation or fifth generation in this country. Immigration has been very, very good for me. So I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break and take advantage of the opportunity to network with each other. In the meantime, we're very grateful for all you're doing, and this passage of this bill, I want to make sure to give credit to Jim Britton, because when I came to Clemson 5 years ago, this was on our goals and objectives for the department from years before. So this is an effort that has been going on for at least 10 years at Clemson to get this bill passed, and we're so grateful to have this additional revenue stream, and hope that you will see this as an opportunity to support the next generation of constructors in South Carolina. So with that, let's take a break, and thanks again for all you're doing.